In the grand halls of the Calorian Academy, young alien girls gathered in groups, their shimmering robes glowing faintly in the soft blue light of the crystal towers. The academy was the pride of their world, a place where the daughters of the strongest clans learned about history, culture, and the galaxy beyond. But today, the lecture was not about their own empire. Today, it was about Earth. The instructor, an elder with long silver hair and sharp violet eyes, stood at the front. On the wall behind her, a hollow image flickered, showing pictures of humans, cities, forests, and oceans. The alien girls leaned forward, eager to see the creatures they had heard so many jokes about. The elder spoke with a serious tone. These are humans. They live on a small world called Earth. Their technology is weaker than ours. Their bodies are fragile. Their minds are simple. They are not like us. But before she could continue, a wave of giggles broke out among the students. One girl raised her hand, pretending to look frightened. "Oh no, teacher, will the humans come and defeat us with their sticks and stones?" The class erupted in laughter. Another girl whispered to her friend, "Look at them, so small and soft. They probably cry when they break a nail." The girls laughed louder. Some even made strange faces, imitating humans walking slowly or stumbling like fools. The academy hall echoed with their laughter, a chorus of voices mocking a species they had never even met. The elder tried to silence them, but even she could not hide a small smirk. In their eyes, humans were not a threat. They were a joke. Later in the garden outside the academy, a group of girls continued their talk. The sky above them burned with 3 suns, casting golden light across the alien flowers that bloomed in every color. The girls sat on a stone bench, still smiling about the lesson. One of them, Leora, the boldest among them, leaned back and said, "If I ever met a human, I would keep him as a pet. Maybe make him serve tea for me." Her friends laughed. "A pet? He wouldn't even survive the first week here. Too hot, too strong for their weak skin." Another added, "I heard they need so much air to breathe. Imagine them fainting after walking a single mile." The laughter grew again, light and cruel. To them, Earth was not a proud world, it was entertainment. But not every girl laughed. Sitting quietly on the edge was Arya, softer in voice but sharper in thought. She watched the hollow images still glowing faintly on her wrist screen. The humans looked fragile, yes, but there was something else. She zoomed in on the eyes of one human soldier standing in a photograph, his uniform torn, his face covered with dirt but his eyes steady and calm. There was no fear there. Arya whispered to herself, "Why does he look like that, not weak?" "Not afraid," her friend nudged her. "Arya, don't tell me you are taking humans seriously. They are nothing. Everyone knows it." Arya smiled faintly and closed the screen. She did not argue, but her thoughts remained heavy. She wondered if the others were blind or if she was simply imagining something that wasn't real. Inside the academy, the elder continued to lecture the next group. She explained how Earth had fought countless wars among themselves, how humans destroyed their own forests, poisoned their oceans, and still survived. "They fight against each other and yet they endure," the elder said. "That is the only reason they still exist. But they will never rise higher than us. They will never touch the stars as we have." The students nodded, though some rolled their eyes as if the subject was beneath them. Leora whispered again, "Endure? Is that all? Then they are nothing but stubborn insects." The elder's gaze shifted, her voice lowering as if warning them. "Do not underestimate survival. Sometimes survival itself is power." But her words faded in the laughter that followed. By evening, the academy girls returned to their quarters. Some carried crystals of light, some hummed songs of their people, yet even as they prepared to rest, the jokes about humans still circled in the air. "Imagine a human trying to duel me," one girl said, lifting her sword. "He would drop it from the weight." "If one ever comes here," another replied, "I'll ask him to polish my boots." Laughter filled the dorm halls once more. But Arya, sitting by her window, gazed at the stars. Her eyes searched for the faint blue spark that was Earth. She whispered to herself again, words only the night could hear. What if we are wrong? Far across the stars, on the very world they mocked, a man stood looking at the same sky. His life was ordinary, his world simple, but his fate was about to cross with theirs. And when it did, the laughter of the alien girls would never sound the same again. The next morning, the academy girls gathered once more in the central hall. Their laughter from yesterday still echoed in their minds. For them, humans were nothing but a story to mock, But fate had other plans, and that day their laughter would be challenged. The great bronze doors of the academy opened with a sudden crash. Guards in heavy silver armor marched inside, and behind them walked something none of the students had ever seen in real life before. It was a man, a real human. He was tall compared to what the girls had imagined, with dark hair, worn clothes, and strong arms scarred from labor. His wrists were chained, but his eyes burned with a strange light. He did not look broken. He did not look afraid. The hall grew silent. Dozens of alien girls stared in shock, whispers spreading like wildfire. Is that a human? Impossible. How did he get here? He looks different from the images. Leora smirked, her pride unshaken. So this is it? The mighty human we studied? He looks like a farmer dragged from the mud. Her friends giggled again, though their voices shook with a hint of unease. The elder instructor raised her hand for silence. This human was captured near the outer colonies. He is to serve in the city as a laborer. Today you will see for yourselves what humans truly are. The guards pushed the man forward. His chains rattled, but his steps were steady. He looked around the grand hall, his gaze sweeping across the laughing alien girls. For a moment, his eyes met Arya's. She froze. There it was again, the same look she had seen in that hollow image. A quiet strength. A calm fire. It unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. The elder pointed at a large metal block placed in the center of the hall. Test him, she ordered. See what your so-called human can do. The girls leaned forward eagerly. One of them whispered, he will not even lift it. His arms will break. The guards unlocked his chains and the human rubbed his wrists slowly. He stepped toward the block. Everyone watched closely. For a long moment, he just looked at it. Then, without a word, he bent down, gripped the block, and with one steady motion, lifted it high above his head. Gasps filled the air. What? That is not possible. He should not be that strong. The human placed the block down gently, not slamming it, not showing off, just proving. Then he straightened his back and stared at the crowd once again. There was no arrogance in his face. No mockery. Only calm. The elder smiled faintly. Do not mistake weakness for peace. Humans are not as fragile as you believe. But many girls refused to accept what they had seen. Leora stood and pointed. It was only luck. His muscles will tear soon enough. The elder ignored her. She turned to the human. Speak your name. The man's voice was low, steady. Daniel. The name echoed strangely in the alien hall. Simple, yet powerful in its unfamiliarity. The guards pulled Daniel back, but his presence had already planted something in the girls' minds. Doubt. That night, the academy was alive with whispers. Did you see his arms? Stronger than expected. No, it must be tricks. Humans cannot be like us. Then how did he lift it so easily? Leora laughed loudly, louder than before, almost as if to drown her own unease. He is still nothing, just a tool for labor. But Arya sat quietly again, staring at the stars from her window. She thought about Daniel's eyes, about the way he moved with calm strength. There was no fear, no begging, no arrogance, just presence. She whispered to herself, why does he not look broken? Why does he look free? The next day, the academy girls were led to the city's workyards. High walls of silver stone rose around them, filled with the sound of tools and machinery. The alien guards brought Daniel with them, his chains heavy around his ankles. The girls watched as he was ordered to repair a broken machine. The device had been left untouched for weeks, its gears locked, its energy crystals misaligned. The guards laughed. Let him try. He will fail. But Daniel knelt beside it, his hands steady. He studied it carefully, then adjusted the gears one by one. His fingers worked with surprising precision. Within minutes, the machine hummed back to life, glowing brightly once more. The workyard fell silent. One of the girls whispered, He fixed it without even asking how. Arya's heart raced. She had seen alien engineers struggle with that machine for days, and yet this human, mocked as weak, solved it calmly in minutes. The guards dragged him away again, but the damage was done. The alien girls had expected to laugh. Instead, they felt something else rising in their chests, curiosity, and for Arya it was more than curiosity. It was the beginning of something she could not yet name. As the sun set on the alien city, the mocking laughter of yesterday began to fade. It was replaced with whispers, questions, and the first spark of doubt. And somewhere deep in her heart, Arya realized that meeting this human was not an accident. It was the start of something far bigger, something that would change her world forever. The suns had just risen above the crystal towers of the alien city. Their golden light spilled across the workyards where Daniel, the human, was forced to labor. The air was filled with the sound of clanging metal and hissing steam. But in the middle of it all, one figure stood out, not because of weakness, but because of how he carried himself. Daniel worked without complaint. His movements were calm, steady, and precise. The guards expected him to stumble, to beg for rest, but he did neither. He lifted heavy stones with his bare hands, repaired broken gears with sharp eyes, and even helped younger alien workers when they struggled. From the balconies above, the academy girls watched. At first they came to laugh. Now they came to see something they could not explain. Leora crossed her arms, trying to hide her unease. So what if he is strong? He is still just one man. He cannot change anything. But her voice trembled. She had seen the way Daniel had carried the stone blocks as if they were nothing. Even alien men struggled with such weight. But the human did it quietly, without pride, without showing off. Her friends whispered among themselves. How can his body endure so much? He works harder than even our soldiers. Maybe humans are not as weak as we thought. Leora cut them off sharply. No, he is only pretending. Humans cannot be our equals. Yet even as she said it, doubt grew inside her. That afternoon, something happened that none of them expected. A loud crack split the air. One of the great machines in the workyard shook violently, sparks flying from its core. An energy crystal burst and a shower of fire rained down. Alien workers screamed, running for cover. One of the academy girls, who had come too close to the edge of the yard, slipped on the stairs. She screamed as a falling beam of metal came crashing down toward her. Everyone froze. But Daniel moved. Without hesitation, he sprinted across the workyard, his chains clattering against the stone. He threw himself forward, grabbing the girl and pulling her out of the way just as the beam slammed into the ground, sending dust and fire into the air. Silence fell. The girl trembled in his arms, staring up at him with wide eyes. He looked down at her calmly, his voice low. You're safe now. The guards rushed over, dragging him back roughly, but the moment had already burned into every witness's mind. A human had risked his life to save one of them. That night, the academy was restless. No one laughed at Earth anymore. Instead, they whispered, he saved her life. Why would he do that? He gains nothing. Maybe humans are not selfish like we thought. Leora, however, felt anger burning in her chest. She slammed her fist against the table. He is trying to trick us. Do not be fooled. He wants us to see him as a hero. But he is still human, still beneath us. But her words sounded weaker now even to herself. Arya could not sleep. She sat by her window, staring again at the stars, the same way she always did. But this time, her mind was full of questions she could not escape. Why did Daniel save the girl? Why did he run into danger when he could have stayed safe? She remembered the way he had looked at the beam falling, not with fear but with determination. His eyes had burned, not with anger, but with something else, something that felt almost like protection. Her heart beat faster as she whispered to herself, humans, what are they really? The following day, Daniel was brought back to the yard. This time, more students came to watch. They tried to hide their curiosity behind sharp words, but their eyes betrayed them. One girl called out, Human, why did you save her yesterday? Daniel looked up from his work, his face calm. Because she needed help, Leora scoffed. Foolish answer. You could have died. Daniel's reply was simple, but it cut deep. Life is not about counting what you might lose. It's about protecting what others might lose. The words struck the girls harder than they expected. They had been taught strength meant domination, power, and victory. But here stood a human in chains, speaking of strength in a way they had never imagined. By evening, the whispers grew louder. Some alien girls began to secretly admire him, not just for his body or his skills, but for something deeper, for the way he carried himself, the way he cared, and for Arya, admiration was no longer a secret feeling. It was a flame growing stronger each day. She found herself wanting to speak to him, to ask questions, to understand, but she dared not yet. Not while the others watched. That night, as the academy bells rang and silence fell across the city, Arya whispered into the darkness, If this is human strength, then maybe we are the weak ones. The alien city glowed under the light of its 3 suns. Towers of silver stone stretched into the skies, and crystal bridges connected one palace to another. The academy girls moved through the courtyards with elegance, their robes flowing like waves of light. They had always carried pride in their hearts, until the human arrived. Daniel's presence had already shaken their beliefs. He was supposed to be weak, fragile, and foolish. Instead, he lifted stones their soldiers struggled to move. He repaired machines their engineers could not fix. And he saved lives without expecting anything in return. But while some girls began to admire him silently, their admiration was dangerous, for in their world, one rule was carved into stone. No alien was ever to bond with a human. It was forbidden, not only by law but by centuries of pride. Yet curiosity has always been stronger than fear. One evening, after the workyard had fallen silent and most guards had left, Daniel sat alone near the broken edge of a fountain. His chains rattled softly as he leaned back, looking up at the alien night sky. The stars glimmered above him, strange and unfamiliar but beautiful. He whispered to himself, "Same sky, different world." A sound broke the silence, the soft rustle of footsteps. Daniel turned and saw her. Arya stood a few feet away, her silver robe glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her hands trembled as she clutched her crystal tablet, her eyes fixed on him with a mixture of fear and courage. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, in a voice softer than the night breeze, Arya asked, "Why did you save her? You could have stayed safe." Daniel's gaze was steady, "Because no one deserves to die when you can stop it." Arya's breath caught in her throat. His words were simple, but they carried a weight she could not describe. She lowered her eyes, afraid of being seen, then quickly turned and left, her heart racing. The next day, whispers spread among the academy halls. Some girls confessed in secret. They wanted to see the human again. They wanted to hear his voice, to look into his strange eyes, to understand his strange strength. At night, they began to sneak into the workyards one by one. One girl brought him water. Another asked him about Earth. They laughed nervously when he answered with stories of rivers, forests, and rain. For them, rain was a mystery. On their world, storms were rare, but on Earth, Daniel said, it fell often, feeding the soil and life. They listened as if he spoke of magic, but their secret meetings were dangerous. The guards warned them, "Stay away from the human. He is not one of us." Still, curiosity pulled them back. One evening, 2 girls sat by Daniel as he worked with broken tools. They asked him questions about his people. "Are humans really so fragile?" one asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "We break, but we heal. That's how we survive." The girls stared silent. None of their teachers had ever explained strength in such a way, yet not everyone was curious. Leora, who had mocked Daniel from the beginning, grew furious when she saw others whispering about him. She confronted them in the academy courtyard. "Are you fools? Have you forgotten the laws? To speak with him, to admire him, it is shame. He is beneath us." But one of the girls dared to answer, her voice trembling. "Then why does he feel stronger than us?" Leora's heart burned with anger, but inside she felt something darker, fear. As days passed, the forbidden bonds grew stronger. Arya returned more often than the others. She asked Daniel about courage, about Earth, about family. She listened to his every word, her heart opening in ways she could not explain. One night, when the moons were high, she whispered to him, "Do humans love the way we do?" Daniel's eyes softened. "Love is what keeps us alive even when everything else is gone." Arya's chest tightened. She had heard warriors speak of honor, leaders speak of power, elders speak of duty, but never love like this. But their secret could not remain hidden. A guard, passing through the shadows, saw Arya kneeling near the chained human, her face glowing with emotion. He froze, his eyes narrowing. The next day, whispers turned to suspicion. The council had begun to notice. And in the academy halls where laughter once echoed, there was now silence and fear. The alien girls had broken their sacred rule, and the price for forbidden bonds was always heavy. The academy once echoed with laughter, but now it echoed with whispers. The alien girls had broken the oldest rule of their world: never bond with a human. At first, their secret was hidden. Late-night meetings, stolen glances, whispered words exchanged behind the shadows of the workyards. Daniel never asked for their closeness, but he did not push them away either. He answered their questions, listened to their fears, and shared the small warmth of his heart. But secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, do not stay silent forever. Weeks passed, and small changes began to show. One morning, Arya fainted during a lesson. Her friends rushed to help, but her cheeks burned red as the healer scanned her. Whispers spread like wildfire when the results appeared. Impossible. It cannot be. She carries life within her. The healer's voice trembled. A child. But not of our kind. The academy fell into chaos. Teachers gasped. Students covered their mouths in shock. And Arya, trembling, could not deny it. Her bond with Daniel had created something their world had never seen before. It did not stop with Arya. One by one, other girls showed signs of the same truth. Weakness in the mornings, strange cravings for Earth's simple foods Daniel had described, soft light glowing in their eyes as if new life stirred within. The elders called emergency meetings. The council gathered in their high chambers, their voices sharp with anger and fear. "This is a disgrace," shouted one. "Humans are nothing but pests, and now they dare plant their seed in our daughters? If the galaxy learns of this, our honor will be destroyed." Another, older and wiser, raised her voice. "Perhaps it is not disgrace. Perhaps it is survival. Do you not see? These children are proof that humans are not weak. They carry strength enough to mix with our own blood." The chamber erupted in argument. Half demanded punishment, half feared what punishment might cause. The students themselves were terrified. Some cried in secret, some clutched their bellies in awe and confusion, but none defended them more fiercely than Arya. She stood before her fellow students, her voice steady though her body trembled. "You laughed at humans. You mocked them. But tell me now, if they are weak, how is it that their life grows inside us? If they are useless, how is it that their touch gave us something even our strongest men could not give?" Her words silenced the hall. For the first time, many began to wonder if everything they had been taught about humans was a lie. The guards wasted no time. Daniel was dragged in chains before the council. His face was calm, though his body carried bruises from punishment. The head elder's voice thundered. "Human, what have you done? You have broken the sacred laws. You have corrupted our daughters." Daniel raised his head slowly, his voice steady. "I did not force them. I did not plan this. I gave only what they asked for. My truth, my care, my love." The word love shook the chamber like thunder. The elders sneered. To them, love was weakness, a soft word for fools. But to the alien girl standing behind him, it was the strongest truth they had ever heard. Arya stepped forward, her hand trembling but her voice clear. "Do not punish him. Punish us if you must. It was our choice. We saw strength in him where none of you looked. We saw the courage to give, not take, and now we carry proof." The chamber exploded with outrage. Elders shouted for exile, for execution, for silence. But others looked at Daniel and at the girls, and saw something new, something terrifying and powerful. That night the city streets were filled with rumors. Citizens whispered that the academy girls carried human children. Some mocked, some raged, but some feared. If this is true, the bloodline of our people will change forever. What if these children are stronger than us? What if they rise? What if they unite us instead of dividing us? In the darkness of the workyard, Daniel sat chained. Arya knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his. Her voice was quiet but unshaken. "They are afraid of you. But I am not. I am afraid only of losing you." Daniel looked into her eyes. For the first time since his capture, a faint smile touched his lips. "Then we will face it together." In that moment, under the cold alien moonlight, the truth was no longer a secret. The bonds were revealed. The children were real, and the galaxy itself would never be the same again. The great council chamber was silent, but the silence was sharp, like a blade waiting to cut. The air shimmered with energy crystals, their glow casting long shadows across the polished stone floor. On the high seats sat the elders, their faces stern, their eyes filled with anger, fear, and pride. At the center of the chamber stood Daniel, chains on his wrists, his back straight. Around him, the alien girls who had once laughed at Earth now stood trembling, but not from shame. They stood out of loyalty. Every citizen in the city had gathered outside the chamber, waiting to hear the verdict. Whispers carried through the halls like a storm. The human must die. No, he must be studied. Or perhaps he must be honored. No one agreed because no one truly understood what Daniel had already changed. The head elder rose. Her voice echoed across the chamber. Human, you stand accused of breaking our oldest law. You have bonded with our daughters. You have given them life that should not exist. Do you deny it? Daniel lifted his head, his voice calm. I do not deny it. But I did not force it. They chose me, just as I chose them. Gasps filled the chamber. Some elders shouted angrily. Lies, deceit! No alien would choose a human. But the girls stepped forward one by one. Arya's voice was clear. It is no lie. We chose him. We saw in him strength you refused to see. Another girl added, He saved us when none of our warriors moved. A third whispered, He gave us care without asking for reward. Their voices rose like fire. Breaking the silence, the elders pounded their staffs on the floor, demanding order. The head elder's eyes narrowed. You speak of strength? You speak of love? Then let him prove it before us all. The guards dragged forward a massive warrior clad in armor of obsidian black. His size dwarfed Daniel's. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, his skin glowing faintly with the marks of their kind. The elder declared, If this human truly holds strength, let him stand against our champion. If he falls, his life ends here. If he survives, perhaps his words will be heard. The chamber roared with approval. Citizens outside shouted, eager for the spectacle. Daniel looked at the towering warrior, then at the girls who stood behind him. His chains were unlocked, falling heavy on the floor. For the first time since his capture, he was free to fight, or to fall. The warrior charged. The ground shook beneath his steps. Daniel did not run. He waited, calm as stone. At the last moment he moved, sidestepping with speed born not of power but of survival. He grabbed a fallen staff from the ground and struck the warrior's leg, forcing him to stumble. Gasps filled the air. The warrior roared and swung again, his blade slicing through the air. Daniel ducked, rolling aside, his body moving not with brute force but with skill. Years of human struggle had sharpened him, not to conquer but to endure. Blow after blow rained down, but Daniel refused to break. His arms bled, his breath grew heavy, but his eyes never lost their fire. Finally, the warrior raised his weapon high, aiming to end it. Daniel, with the last of his strength, rushed forward, not to kill but to disarm. He twisted the weapon free and dropped it to the ground. Then he stepped back, his chest rising and falling, refusing to strike the final blow. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Daniel's voice was low, but it carried through the hall. Strength is not in destroying. Strength is in protecting even those who hate you. The elders were shaken. Some still shouted for his death, but their voices were weaker now. Others looked at him with something new, respect. The head elder stood once more, her voice trembling. Why do you not kill him? He insulted you. He attacked you. Why spare him? Daniel's answer was simple. Because if I kill him, I prove your point. If I let him live, I prove mine. Arya stepped forward, tears in her eyes. She stood beside Daniel in the center of the chamber. Do you not see? He is human, yes, but he carries honor greater than many of our kind. If he dies, we lose more than a man. We lose the chance for a future different from our pride. The council was divided. Some demanded punishment. Others whispered of prophecy. Outside, the citizens argued in chaos. But inside the chamber, one truth was clear. Daniel had faced their trial, and he had not broken. He had stood in chains, in weakness, against their mightiest champion, and still, he had won. The head elder's voice lowered, almost uncertain. Perhaps the true trial has only just begun. The council chamber had never been so divided. Elders whispered. Guards shifted uneasily, and the alien girls stood close to Daniel, their hands trembling but their faces proud. Outside, the streets of the Silver City thundered with voices, some calling for his death, others whispering of hope. The head elder rose slowly, her long silver hair glowing faintly under the crystal lights. Her voice was steady, but behind it there was conflict. The human has faced our trial and survived. He has shown skill, strength, and mercy, yet he has also broken our laws and brought shame upon our daughters. What shall be done with him? The hall erupted again. Execute him, shouted one elder. Exile him to the wastes, cried another. But a softer voice spoke from the far corner. Or, let him stay, for perhaps he is not the end of us, but the beginning of something greater. Daniel stood silent. He did not beg for life nor argue for mercy. He only looked at the faces around him, the girls who had chosen him, the elders who despised him, and the countless citizens who would be changed forever by the choice made that day. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm, steady, unshaken. I am not here to take your power. I am not here to rule or to destroy. I am only here because I was brought. But if life has grown between us, if love has taken root, then perhaps it was never meant to be stopped. You fear me because I am human. But I tell you this, our strength is not in weapons, not in conquest. It is in what we give each other. You call it weakness. I call it survival. The words echoed through the hall, heavy with truth. Arya stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of every girl who stood beside her. You taught us humans were worthless. Yet when danger came, he saved us. You taught us humans were fragile. Yet he worked harder and endured more than our strongest. You taught us humans had no honor. Yet when he could have killed, he chose mercy. Tell me, elders, if this is weakness, then what is strength? The chamber fell silent. Even the head elder's lips trembled, though she tried to hide it. At last, the council voted. Their staffs struck the floor one by one. The decision was not unanimous, but it was final. Daniel would live. He would not be executed nor exiled. He would remain under watch, but his life and the lives he had created with their daughters would be allowed to grow. The announcement spread through the city like fire. Some shouted in rage, calling it betrayal. Others fell into silence, unable to comprehend what it meant. And some, quietly, secretly, smiled, for they had seen the future begin with their own eyes. That night, the academy girls gathered in the gardens, the moons casting soft light across the glowing flowers. Arya stood with Daniel beneath the crystal trees. Her voice trembled, but her heart was steady. The world will never see us the same again. They will fear us. They will judge us. But we will not be alone. Daniel looked at her, his eyes calm, his hands scarred but steady. Fear fades. But what we build, that lasts. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile. In the weeks that followed, the whispers of the city turned to legends. The children growing within the alien girls became symbols of something the galaxy had never seen before. Unity. Half alien, half human, yet more than either side alone. Some called them abominations. Others called them miracles. But no one could deny they were real. The laughter that once mocked Earth was gone forever. In its place, there was awe and fear. Years later, when those children were born, their cries shook the halls of the academy more deeply than any speech or weapon ever could. Their eyes carried both human warmth and alien fire, and when they looked at the stars, it was with the vision of two worlds joined. The galaxy would never forget the story. The alien girls who once laughed at Earth had been changed forever by one human man who refused to bow, who refused to kill, who gave instead of taking. And the whispers spread beyond their planet, carried to distant worlds. Humans are not weak. Humans are not worthless. Humans are the future. As Daniel stood with Arya, their child, in her arms, he looked once more at the night sky, the same stars he had seen back on Earth, and he whispered, almost to himself, maybe the universe was waiting for this moment all along.